Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, number 2 would be Insidious, The Red Door, number 3 would be Joyride, number 4 would be SpiderMan Across the Spider-Verse, and number 5 would be Elemental. And Jesus Christ, this was a complete fucking goose egg of a prediction. 0 out of 5. And, you know, some other people predicted the surprise movie that I didn't know was coming or would make big waves. So some of you got that right as far as it appearing, but no one got it completely right across the board. So that's where we're at with these box office predictions here. So let's go over what happened in the overall top 10. Number 1, I was kind of hesitant on it happening. I knew there was a possibility of it, but I just didn't really know. But I was honestly kind of pleasantly surprised to see that number 1 was Insidious, The Red Door. You know, the Insidious franchise has always had like solid openings and they never cost too much, so they're always considered a success. I was just wondering, like, you know, in this day and age of like 2023, it's been like about 5 years since Insidious 4, you know, are people really that interested in it now? I don't know. And Indiana Jones technically is still out. It could hold over better, I don't know, but it is a nice surprise to see it hold over like this, the franchise as a whole. You know, it opened with $32 million, which is doubled already its $16 million budget. It is the second highest opening weekend for the franchise, $8 million behind Insidious Chapter 2, and it needs $20 million right now until it outgrosses the entire domestic run of 3. Worldwide, it is already sitting at, if the domestic one already doubling its $16 million budget wasn't, you know, impressive enough, it is already sitting at $64 million worldwide, so they need $35 million until they outgross Chapter 1, but they have already, like, quadrupled their $16 million budget, so it's like, yeah, they're good. You know, if they don't outgross the other installments right now, that's fine, because they've already kind of made a profit. It's kind of refreshing to see a movie in a franchise come out and actually do well, and some of it has to do with, like, you know, there's a surprise factor, because like I said, I didn't know it would do this well. But there is also a fact, like, hey, this movie, you know, has had like a consistent fan base over the years if you look at the opening weekends and how they all do, and it costs significantly less than some of the other films that we'll be talking about soon. So, I didn't really care for this movie as much as some of the other ones. In my opinion, it's probably my least favorite, maybe, in the entire franchise. I'm pretty sure, because, like, I don't really care for The Last Key either. The first 3 I think are good. 3 is probably the weakest, but they're still good. And then these last 2 have kind of been mixed bags. And this one, I hate to say it, as far as like a finale, as far as bringing the other characters back, it almost kind of feels like a letdown as far as like a tying it all together kind of movie. A lot of repeat stuff. But I didn't really hate it. It was just like, you know, and I enjoyed some parts of it just as a fan of this franchise, but it just didn't really do it for me. But that being said, seeing this, you know, succeed as well as it did, you know, when I thought like there's a chance that, you know, this doesn't open as well, maybe it's a big disappointment. I don't know why I thought that, considering the budget is already so low. I think just disappointment compared to the rest of the series, but this is pretty solid, and the fact that it had an opening weekend that is the second highest in the entire thing, you know, paints a good picture that it will go on to do pretty well. I do wonder how it will do next weekend, just because Mission Impossible, that's like the only movie, the new release that is coming out, but that's aimed to do big business. And as far as like movies that could potentially hold over excellently well, that's a big one. So we're going to see how that goes, but more particularly how Insidious does compared to that. But, you know, right now they're already in the clear. Number 2, however, may suffer significantly so. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, they didn't drop hilariously bad like The Flash did, but it still was a 56% drop, so not complete 60s, a little over half though, and that's not really where this movie needs to be, especially with a price tag of $300 million. It made $26 million, adding to a domestic total of $121 million, so for James Mangold, that is $45 million over Night and Day, $2 million over Walk the Line, and $4 million over Ford v Ferrari, and it now needs $11 million until it outgrosses the entire domestic run of The Wolverine. For the entire Indy franchise, it's still behind Temple of Doom, this time by $58 million. So for James Mangold, it's progressing, you know, significantly so, and then for Indy, it's like, well, yeah, it's looking like it's going to be one of their lowest grossing ones. It'll probably outgross Temple of Doom, but it's probably going to stop there at some point. Worldwide, it is sitting at $247 million, and the stats are pretty similar. It needs $86 million until it outgrosses Temple of Doom, still behind that one. And for James Mangold, it has outgrossed Walk the Line by $60 million and Ford v Ferrari by $23 million, and now needs $11 million until it outgrosses Night and Day. So yeah, I did see a tweet, just like, you know how like Twitter will just show you shit even if you're not following a person, like they'll have have a new tab where it's like, well, based on the algorithm, here's something you definitely want to see. It was something like, it's crazy how this, huge, significant flop of a movie, has already grossed close to 250 million worldwide or something like that. And it's like, it is still a flop though, because the price tag is 300 million. They need at least over 600 million. I don't think it's exactly 600 million. They need at least over that. So like maybe 700 million at the least, but even then that could be higher, you know what I mean? And the fact that, it had so much hype going into it, the hold was meh, you know what I mean? From the first weekend, which was disappointing, to this one, it jumped up from like, hey, worldwide it was like 140, 50, whatever, and now it's 240. It's like, that's still not good enough. It hasn't even crossed its initial production budget worldwide yet. That is still fucking horrible. And I wish some people would just stop fucking tweeting thinking they're the smartest sounding person in the world. That's unrelated though, because I didn't get the name of that tweeter, so it's like, you might be wondering, like, who is this person? I need to track them down. I don't remember. And don't track them down. Don't harass anybody. I just wanted to respond to something I read randomly that won't affect the rest of my life from now on. Let's move on to number 3, which is the surprise film, Sound of Freedom. Now, I think I heard some rumblings about this one. I think I was completely unaware of it coming out, and I also didn't think it had that much of like a buzz to get people in the theater this month. It made $18 million this weekend, and it opened up on the 4th of July, so it actually has a domestic total of 40 million. I saw that. I remember seeing it on the Numbers website for the daily domestic charts. It had like a 14 million or something opening for like the opening day, which was, I was like, what the fuck? I was so surprised by it. And looking at the budget, 14.5 million, they have already doubled that in total with this 40 million. So hey, congrats to them, to Angel Studios, I think they're the ones who picked it up. Congrats, you got a hit. I don't want to dwell on it too much. Let's move on to number 4, which is Elemental, actually overtaking Across the Spider-Verse, making $9 million, adding to a domestic total of $109 million. It's still behind Lightyear domestically by $9 million, but worldwide it is sitting at $251 million. It kind of got a little bit of a boost as far as I can remember from the numbers it got last weekend. It has now outgrossed Lightyear worldwide by $33 million and now needs $82 million until it outgrosses The Good Dinosaur. I still don't see this movie doubling its $200 million budget. This little boost got it over the initial point, but it still needs the whole thing to be considered a success. But hey, it's lasting a little bit more than The Flash, which you'll see isn't even in the top 10 anymore. So there you go. Let's move on to number 5, though, which is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, making $8 million, adding to a domestic total of $357 million. It still needs $16 million until it outgrosses Spider-Man 2. Worldwide, it is sitting at $642 million, and it needs $66 million until it outgrosses The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So the 2s are the ones it needs to get to domestically and worldwide. It's still a little behind there. Domestically, it has a bit more of a shot. I think worldwide, it's not too much of a stretch to say it could still outgross them while it's still here in the top 10. I'm not sure how, especially with Mission Impossible right around the corner, but also Barbie and Oppenheimer, so we'll see how all of these, do with that. But, this movie's already, doubled, tripled, quadrupled its budget with this $642 million worldwide total on a budget of $100 million or $150, but that's still pretty good. Let's move on to number 6, which was unfortunately a huge fucking flop. Joyride. It made $5.8 million. I'm not sure what the budget of this thing is. I'm assuming it must be a little bit high. It is a Seth Rogen production after all. And they do travel to a couple different places as far as I can tell. They didn't fake, or like I said, as far as I can tell, they didn't fake some of this shit. So, that's gonna add a little bit to the price tag of this thing. So it's just kind of a bummer, there's no worldwide total to bump up the number yet. So right now it's just looking like it's only made 5.8 million, which is kind of a bummer because this movie's really good. I saw it on Saturday. They had like a special like week early kind of like one night only screening of it, and I saw it and I was like, this is pretty funny, and it also has a really good emotional core to it near the end of this thing. It's kind of a bummer that it's not, in the top 5. It's just kind of a shame, especially with, I feel like normally I would say like maybe it'll have a strong hold, but I just think, compared to everything else that is over top it, and then you add Mission Impossible to that, there's just no way this movie's gonna have like a lasting theater impression. Maybe once it hits digital and streaming and stuff like that it will, but I'm honestly kind of disappointed. I was really hoping for more out of this. Number 7 is No Hard Feelings, which I guess you could say I was also hoping for a little bit more out of, considering Okay, let's go over it. It made $5.2 million this weekend, which adds to a domestic total of $40 million. For the director, that's $43 million until it outgrosses his last film, Good Boys. Worldwide, it is sitting at $67 million, so $44 million until it outgrosses Good Boys worldwide. And you might be looking at that and going like, well, it's a comedy, you know, it's not like a big blockbuster kind of budget, so this number must be fine. And maybe it is, but when you look at this price tag of $45 million, and you know that the standard rule is you have to double it to be considered a success, and they still need about $23 million in order to double it, that 45, that is, you know, that's still not great, you know what I mean? Like, if the budget was low, like, if this cost as much as Insidious The Red Door did, then, like, yeah, this is a pretty solid return all around, but you know, $45 million went into this, and, you know, it crossed over that initial production budget worldwide, but, you know, like I keep saying, the golden rule is that if you double it, you know, that's the, you know, pretty clear standard that you're doing well. And I don't know, like, it's not like they're going to report every single time one of their movies is a flop or a complete success or not, but it's not like anyone has come out and really, like, proclaimed, like, yes, you know, this movie is doing excellently, you know what I mean? People are just saying, like, it's doing solid, you know? I don't know, man. I kind of wish that, you know, because there was a little bit of buzz, at least on Twitter, that Jennifer Lawrence was doing a movie like this. I was hoping that once the trailer plays in theaters and you get the comedy crowd in there, maybe that would spread to other people's interest, but I guess it kind of didn't, which is, you know, like I keep saying, a bummer. Let's move on to number 8, which is Transformers Rise of the Beast, making $5.0 million, adding to a domestic total of $146 million. That is $99 million away from outgrossing Age of Extinction. Still a long ways to go there, and it probably won't do it. Worldwide, it is sitting at $403 million. So still behind Bumblebee by $62 million, but it is finally, you know, numbers-wise, it has finally doubled its initial production budget of $200 million. So there you go, you know what I mean? Like I keep saying, for a lot of these big blockbusters, you might have to go a little bit over in order to see, like, is it a success or not? The fact that this hasn't, I'm pretty sure with a budget like this, they were maybe looking for at least $500 million, you know what I mean? Especially, like, with some good word of mouth from Bumblebee, and hoping that would spread into, you know, more fans coming in for the next big ensemble Transformers film. The fact that domestically it's outgrossed The Last Knight and Bumblebee, which, you know, that's good in one respect, but worldwide, which is everything, it's not just, you know, one country or the next. Worldwide, which is everything, it still has not outgrossed Bumblebee, which is the lowest grossing Transformers live action film right now. That must say something to them as far as, like, well, you know, maybe there is a way we can lower some budgets for the next couple films and really make a profit, but, you know, we want to make big blockbusters. We want to get people in. Is there still a waning interest in this thing? I'm sure there's a lot of questions being asked about what's their next steps, especially, I'll try not to spoil what happens at the very end of Rise of the Beast in case you haven't seen the movie and you don't know what happens, but they promise something pretty big as far as, like, the future, you know? So for them to have that ending forever, and if it never goes anywhere, it's like, well, yeah, you can look at the box office for that, you know, there wasn't that much interest, you know? Which, once again, huge bummer, because I thought this was a fun movie. Like I keep saying, though, like, I understand why people didn't absolutely, like, rally behind this thing and, like, proclaim it as one of the, you know, best summer blockbusters, because, you know, it's a decent movie. I wouldn't say it's one of the best, but it's, like, it's definitely the best of the ensemble Transformers films we've gotten. And I do think that, you know, there are some people out there that are maybe burnt out of Michael Bay and just burnt out of Transformers in general. They want better things out of their summer blockbuster movies. But I also think we see this a lot on Twitter and online. There has been a bit of a resurgence as far as, like, some appreciation for some of the ways Michael Bay has made the movies. Not everything, you know what I mean? But at least some of the ways he would craft an action scene. I think that a lot of people can agree, though, even in the most negative of Transformers reviews, they will probably compliment one aspect of Michael Bay's action filmmaking at one point. So I think maybe there is a bit of, like, well, this new film has some fun action, but compare that to anything in Michael Bay's, it just seems a little more boring, which I can kind of see. I don't know, man. It's still just a big bummer, though, because I wanted this to be, like, a really good, you know, revival for Transformers, and it started off solid, but just kind of petered out to, all right, it just barely doubled its $200 million budget. Number 9 is The Little Mermaid, making $3.5 million, adding to a domestic total of $289 million. It is still $45 million away until it outgrosses Alice in Wonderland 2010. Worldwide, though, it is sitting at $542 million. It has outgrossed the Cinderella remake by a couple $100,000 and now needs $216 million until it outgrosses Maleficent. So there you go. You know, I really don't have anything else to add to this thing. I'm assuming it'll probably stick around one more time next weekend, since, like like I keep saying, Mission Impossible is like the only big new release coming, so maybe we'll see Little Mermaid one more time, but if this is the last time we see it, you know, what a underwhelming kind of Disney remake kind of run, you know what I mean? Usually, I remember back in 2019 when it was like, man, Aladdin's dominating for weeks, and then, oh my god, here comes The Lion King, and I mean, even back in 2016 when The Jungle Book was killing it, or 2017 when Beauty and the Beast, and now we have, you know, people are so burnt out, not just from how many there are, but also some reviews were pretty solid for this. Audiences, obviously, you know, a lot of audiences are Disney fans already, and they showed up probably wanting to love it, so that was really glowing, but, you know, they didn't make something that was like, you know, people were saying, like, you gotta see this, you know what I mean? Like, this is the must-see kind of, like, family film, you know? It was just kind of like, well, if you're gonna see it, you're gonna see it, you know? And that's not the strongest word of mouth around, especially with some people also being conditioned for Disney Plus, because you get some remakes on there now. Pinocchio, Lady and the Tramp. I'm sure some people were like, why are they putting this remake in the theater? It looks like it should be on Disney Plus. So I don't know. Either way, yeah, definitely an underwhelming kind of run. I know that's weird to say because the price, how much it made is $542 million, but when the price tag is $250, and like I keep saying, folks, especially for a Disney blockbuster, you gotta make at least a little bit more than double your budget in order to be considered a success. So for something like Little Mermaid, maybe $600 million, maybe $700 million, $542 million won't cut it. And now, finally closing out the video, number 10 is Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. What a shame, you know, it's not a great movie, but, you know, it sunk really fast. It made $2.8 million, adding to a domestic total of $11 million, so it is still behind Sinbad by $15 million. Worldwide, it is at $26 million, and still behind Spirit Untamed by $16 million. A big shame that this movie literally just came and left and didn't really make much of an impact. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, pretty obvious. I think Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is going to take this. I am going to be interested to see how much it does, and then the weekend after, how much the hold will be when it's literally going like head-to-head with Barbie and Oppenheimer. But the thing about Mission Impossible, though, is that they're opening up on a Wednesday, which is also a Tuesday night for the early kind of showings. I think maybe even just Tuesday in general, if I remember those times correctly. There was a couple, because I got tickets for Tuesday. There's like a couple like earlier on in the day, so it might just be Tuesday. So they have like a couple more days to like really make a lot of money, like how we just saw with Sound of Freedom. They have a couple more days to make a lot more money heading into the opening weekend, so that'll be interesting to see as well. So that's going to be my number 1 prediction. Number 2, Insidious: The Red Door. Number 3, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Number 4, Sound of Freedom. Unless this thing like only had like a 1-week run deal, like some other movies that come and go and are surprises to me, or maybe it won't, I don't know. Either way, that's my number 4 for now, and then number 5, Elemental. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.